Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Grain Blast. It is Wednesday, the 29th of October. Yeah,
Oop, sorry.
hello. You join myself and the goddess of grain herself, Angie, where Angie will be providing us with a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in grain markets. But before she does, I'll get the boring bit out of the way. Nothing discussed on this podcast is trading or investment advice. Nothing we say here is an endorsement. If in future we are ever endorsed, you will be the first to know about it, believe you me. But now we've got that bit out of the way, I'm going to welcome Angie for all the good stuff. Angie, how are you, my love?
Woohoo! I'm good. Actually, I just saw a TikTok of
Oh,
like someone with French onion soup and like
okay.
a bread bowl, and so now I can't focus. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
not it's 30. Like, what is wrong with me?
are you a
Uh,
fan of the French onion soup then? I take it.
no, I love the French onion soup. That's why I would like some of it. That's
So
all.
basically, what you're saying is, I don't want to be on the call with you, Ryan. I want to be making some French onion soup.
I want to figure out where this French onion soup thing is that I just anyway. No, I know what I
Anyway,
am. It's
what
all
are we here for?
yeah, that's it. I'm just wandering into the weeds mentally here. But yeah, welcome. It's Wednesday. I keep thinking it's Thursday too, by the
I
way.
nearly
So
said,
I
yeah.
need to be put out to pasture at
I
this point,
I
I
was
think.
very close to saying Thursday, the 30th of October for some
Well, I'm
reason.
glad I'm the only one then.
Yeah.
So that's good. Tomorrow is a big day, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. Market wise here this morning as we kick off, right?
Oh,
We're seeing wheat.
I,
Yes.
I forgot to say, just a reminder to everyone. Obviously, I need to be putting these reminders out now because we go out onto all the podcasts. That this show is recorded live. We apologise if any expletives are said, but take us how you find us, basically.
Yeah, I think I hope you're used to me by this point.
Right? I was more thinking
But
of me, but yeah.
if not, it's going to be a shock. That's like usually, and then I'll dive right in. But a lot of times when I give a market presentation anymore in front of audiences of people, I will say, raise your hand if you have either seen me speak or know who I am. And so, like, then I'll say to everyone, well, the ones of you who didn't raise your hand, you might want to put your helmet on because this isn't going to be at all.
I can
This is
attest to that.
not your grandpa's market outlook. But anyway, happy Wednesday. Market wise here today, we got wheat leading the way higher to start our morning. Basically, looking at Chicago wheat up about 3 cents, Kansas City wheat up 4.5 or so, spring wheat also up 3 cents. And when it comes down to it, part of what we're seeing or whatever, why is wheat higher? Who knows? It's just been so cheap for so long. But also, we are seeing more conversation about the logistical nightmares out of Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's getting more expensive to move grain. You've got quality issues, and things like that. And then we're also seeing some issues really pop up with Russian wheat. Like you're seeing, export offers rise. You're seeing limited. So this is one of the things that I have found really quite interesting, right? As we continue to hear about all of the wheat that is present in the world market and how there's just limited demand. But yesterday, Jordan tendered for wheat and only got two basically offers. Like there wasn't much in the way of anything that would point towards a massive supply. Now,
Yeah.
maybe it's something macro related or there's something logistics. So I don't want to just speak boldly about it where it's like, oh, this one tender is an indication of blah, blah, blah. But it is one of those things that we're seeing right now where there's been this conversation of, oh, limited demand versus, massive supply. And we're still not seeing it. We're still seeing cash prices. And this isn't just in wheat. This is basically everything else. Soybeans are a little weird. We'll talk about them in a minute. But your feed grains, your corn and your wheat especially, like you're seeing a continuation of rising cash prices to a certain extent. You're seeing a continuation of really strong front end demand, and we're seeing it show up in spreads on the market structure, and we're seeing it, kind of show up in the fact that for corn and wheat both, for wheat now we're quietly 37 cents off the low, maybe even more than that. I think we're maybe 39 now, almost 40 cents off the low because I think I blacked out when we traded down to 492. And in corn, we're 23 cents off from the low that was established here just a week ago. We bottomed out around 410 at the start of last week, and here we sit 433 or so. And we continue to see the signs that I've been talking about I feel like I just keep repeating myself at this point. Like we're continuing to see signs of really strong corn demand. We've got basis updates, and this is both corn and soybeans. You look at the Eastern Corn Belt, And there are some pretty massive signs that this crop wasn't as expected, and when it comes down to it, the Eastern Corn Belt is basically the epicenter of what has been well established soybean crush. I'm not going to say obviously like Iowa and Nebraska, like you have crush plants there, but the Western Corn Belt has kind of been where we rely heavily upon rail and beans out to the PNW, your Dakotas, your Minnesotas, stuff like that. The East is where you have like Louis Dreyfus, Claypool, Fostoria, Quincy. We have Ithaca. You're looking at several different soybean crush facilities in the Eastern Corn Belt that are 40 million bushel a year plants, and they're just not getting what they need to see. And you're seeing a continuation of basis strength there, and really cash market signals that even as the market is rallying, like what's most important about this continuation of basis strength now is that you are getting a flat price rally. And there have been a lot of folks out there that have been like, oh, well, the farmer, as soon as they get the opportunity, they're going to dump it. And now they're saying, well, basis is staying strong because the farmer isn't selling as aggressively as we thought they would. Yes, they are. The farmer, I can tell you for the last 2 days, all I have done is managed farmer bushels. We have sold old crop basis.
Sell, in the words of Jim Cramer.
Say that again? Yeah.
Sell.
Yeah, that's what, and I mean, we scale sell. Like when I manage farmer selling, like it's important to remember, like a farmer isn't going to come in really and just, most farmers, I have to be careful because I have a couple that are perfectly comfortable with just being like, today's the day I'm going to sell it. I'm done. But, most farmers are going to sell 10, 20% at a time, things like that. And
so I tell you, when I'm back during the war, back when I was on a broking desk, we would call that finessing the order.
Yes, we finesse into the market because, you have to. You have a ton of time, you have a ton of opportunity, you know what I mean? And some years it's the worst thing you could do. Last year, you should just liquidated everything basically September, October timeframe on the soybean side of things because you never really got back to where we were a year ago at this time either. And so from an overall standpoint, like I feel like I'm just kind of babbling when we come into these because we don't really have much in the way of structure currently because we don't have, okay, well, the USDA is saying that we have this much crop harvested and we have this and supply and demand report coming up and all these other things. We don't have that structure currently. And so it's one of those things where I just every day I come in and I'm like, all right, what are we looking at, when it comes to overall grain movement and flow, and on the feed grade side of things specifically, and then I'll move over to soybeans, but the feed grain side of things specifically, the narrative around the world of we just have way too much supply and relatively limited demand, it could not be more wrong. I think we actually probably are going to find we have less supply available than what we thought we did. I think it's becoming crystal clear out of places like Russia and Ukraine that we've overestimated the crop, and now we'll just have to see what happens with South America as Australia and Argentina go to harvest their crop. There is some talk of some potential quality issues. Like everyone right now, one of the reasons that everyone was so negative on wheat here over the last couple of weeks was the conversation that, oh, Argentina's crop's going to be 11 bajillion metric tons. It was really 23, but a wheat crop out of Argentina of 845 million bushels is a record crop by, a couple million metric ton, if not three or four, and so we're not only setting records, according to the market narrative, like we're just blowing them straight out of the water. And I always take a lot of that with a grain of salt. Now, Argentina's production weather has been good, but now they've seen, some heavy rain. There's been some talk of potential quality things. And really, when it comes down to it, even if they have a 23 million metric ton crop, right now, exporters only own about 5 million metric ton that they can put into the global marketplace. And so overall, on the feed grains, it's a dollar, which the dollar is kind of strengthening today, but we'll get that Fed decision this afternoon. We'll have some, updates with China and whatever. But from an overall standpoint, especially for wheat and corn, the U.S. continues to maintain the most readily available supply with the best logistics and the best quality. And so you're going to see a continuation of really strong demand and probably a continuation of basis and spread strength here in the short term, because once the farmer has put this crop away, you're going to be hard pressed to get them to think about moving it. December will come. There'll be some cash flow needs. There'll be some quality needs. There'll be some other things like that. But if you're a commercial and you haven't taken in the bushels you thought you were going to take in, then you think you're going to get easy ownership here over the next 3 to 4 weeks as harvest is wrapped up. Good luck, Godspeed. Let me know how that works for you, because it's going to be a knife fight in a lot of places out here on the countryside. So Over into soybeans, obviously, we're down 4.5 this morning. We have bounced off the low though. Earlier today, we're down to that 1068 level, which like 1065 is old resistance. So if you look back at the chart there, like 1061, 1065 sort of area, we had stopped in that range and kind of fallen off a couple different times. So far, it looks like that wants to hold. There is a gap on the chart still on the November chart in that 1045 sort of area that we're going to want to watch, that a lot of folks might kind of have in their sights. But from an overall standpoint here, it does appear we did get 3 cargoes of soybeans traded into China yesterday. The report is COFCO bought 3 of them, one out of the PNW, one out of the Gulf, and everyone's like, oh, this is the first purchase of beans by China all year. And I'd just like to really kind of remind everyone, COFCO US exists. Okay, they've been buying beans all fall. Oh, like this isn't it's not like China is on the complete outs or whatever. Like they have beans, they have ownership. Like that's part of where you're seeing the St. Louis market firm and some of these other things. Like this idea that this is the first sort of purchase. Now it's the first public purchase. It's the first purchase that will be converted, though it could go other places too. It's FOB. It's basically they bought the bushels to be picked up in the U.S. and they can do with them whatever the hell they want. And so that's one of those things too that we'll be watching. We'll get the conversation. I believe everyone's saying 11 a.m. Was it 11 or 10 a.m. for the Trump Xi meeting? And I'm going to guess that's local time.
Yeah, I believe so. Don't shout at me if I'm wrong, but yes, that's what.
Yeah, me either, please. But great news about that is that's 10 p.m. tonight.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to wake up in the morning and know whether or not that they kissed,
Yeah.
like did they or didn't they? And so that'll be the big thing. But to see the market kind of swoon a little bit ahead of it isn't overly surprising, just simply because we've just absolutely mashed the accelerator to the floor on this market. And like I said, in soybeans, we're 70 cents above basically the low on the January contract that we set. I mean, we traded down on October 1st. Okay, so I take that back. We as recently as the 15th, basically. I was like, it felt a lot more recent than that. But, on the January contract, we were 70 cents lower on the 13th, like 2 weeks ago. We were 70 cents lower. So to see a bit of a backfill and some of these other things, I always say to my farmers, like, a house of cards, you can't build a house of cards straight up. So like to have a rally and have a bit of a downturn and build the foundation out a bit wider and then kind of build from there. I think that's what we're seeing in beans overall. But really, when it comes down to it, all of the focus is going to be on the Trump Xi conversation. It does appear as though, both sides have pretty much been like, okay, I'm tired of this. Like, let's just figure out a way to, I saw our friend Zach posted today about where it was like both sides, kind of are thinking that they're going to buy more time or whatever. And all of these other things like, and both sides can be right. Both sides are probably going to walk away from this thinking that they won, and like really when it comes down to it, did the overall structure of the market change? Probably not. Not really. Not a whole lot. I hope not anyway. Like, let's just kind of get this behind us and move on. So we'll see what today brings. I wouldn't be least bit surprised, like I said, to kind of see a bit more in the way of meh type trade, unless, Barron gets a tip. I'm kind of mostly joking.
Well, yeah, side eye joking. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Tongue in cheek right there. But, unless you see something where all of a sudden, like the cash market, and I've said this before, we don't need the USDA to be open to give us the export update for the most part when it comes to, China buying. Because that is going to be the worst kept secret from anyone. Everyone knew yesterday that China had bought 3 cargoes.
Yeah.
We knew by 2 p.m. And so now we'll be seeing if they're going to come in with wheat. They are still having problems getting their crop planted this fall. They're probably going to look for corn too, so hold on to your hats. But we'll see how the conversation goes. We'll know a hell of a lot more in 24 hours.
Wonderful indeed. So that's exactly why people need to be tuning in on tomorrow's show. There you go. Easy.
I like it.
You see what I did there? Angie, thank you so much as always. Really do appreciate you taking the time for this. Listeners, obviously, we've got our live listeners, so special thank you to you guys. Also, welcome and hello from the past if you are listening to this on the podcast players. Whatever you're doing today, do keep it tight, stay safe, keep your powder dry, and we will see you all tomorrow. Much love.
Have a good one, guys.